It's Daybreak on Trust Television, and we have a reviewer in the studio this morning, the editor of 21st Chronicle Century, 21st Chronicle Century, yes, Nuruddin Abdallah, taking a deep dive, if you like, into the papers this morning. And the next paper for review this morning will be the Punch newspaper. Quite a number of interesting stories on the cover there, and the major one, it's of course the events from yesterday in Abeokuta. I brought Buhari out of political retirement, assisted him to emerge president. This is according to Tinubu. I went to Katsina to convince Buhari to contest after 3 defeats. Ashiwaju, I nominated Oshibajo after Saraki. Others blocked me from taking the VP slot. Tinubu, Northern Governors Plan consensus. Akeredolu, Tinubu, others insist on a Southern presidency. You would have the picture of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration, but here it is with the late Duke of Edinburgh, while she marked her Platinum Jubilee celebration on the throne. It was marked with a lot of activities, as we have observed from yesterday. You have that picture of her, but the caption here says Queen Elizabeth suffers discomfort during parade, misses Jubilee service today. Right beside that, you have Okada ban. Lagos crushes another 2,228 motorcycles today. You find that story on page 11. Outrage as lady dies after plastic surgery. Police seeks information. That story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And right beneath it, you have US-based Nigerian kills self after shooting wife, grandmother. This is becoming disturbing after we had a similar incident not too long ago. And right beside the nameplate, you have 89% of Nigerians lack access to clean cooking gas. And that's on page 20. And then we have electricity tariff surges by 58% after 500 billion naira subsidy suspension. According to a report, you'll find that story on page 15 of the Punch newspaper. We have a belt right at the top with the headline, New Terminal, Foreign Airlines Reject FG Relocation Order. That's strange. You want to operate in Nigeria, but you want to operate under your own rules. That story you find on page 20, and right above the name marks, you have Abuja fuel queues return, third time in 2022. Motorists flee NNPC. I wonder what the explanation is this time. Strike, ASU meets as visitation panel submits report. That story is on page 10, and we have Union Bank CEO, others resign, I Starten Trust complete acquisition. That story is on page 20. So we come to a reviewer in the studio. We had earlier delved into this conversation, but I would like to get your thought as somebody who followed closely the incidents of the emergence of the president. Is it safe? We know there is a public narrative since 2014 of the efforts of Nasir El-Rufai in convincing the president from reneging on his earlier public commitments not to run for elective offices. From where is this whole I convinced Buhari to run coming from Asiwaju? And that's one. The other part is the I made him president narrative. How do we then situate the efforts of people like Olusegun Obasanjo and the new PDP governors whose contribution was critical to whatever emergence conversation that was happening at the time?
I think let me start with the second part of your question, what you call the I made him president narrative by Asiwaju. What he said in Abeokuta is factual. Mm-hmm. Yes, all the people knew it. You understand? Let me take you back. If you remember, immediately after Jonathan conceded, Buhari was at the Ballantyre Street. Wherever Buhari went, he thanked 3 people. El-Rufai's name is never there. It's never there. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Chief Bisi Akonde, and Chief John Oyegun. You can watch the clip again and again. And I remember I was at the International Conference Center. I won't mention the names of the two of them are not alive today. And they're some of the close associates of the president. When we went there, I covered the president. 2011, 2017. So we're sitting, I think, the third row. These people are very prominent, close to the president. We are sitting. The president were already seated. The president and the vice were already seated when Professor Jega was to hand over the certificate of return. I remember when Buhari started his speech, he thanked these same people, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Chief Bisi Akonde, and Chief John Oyegun. I remember the other person is still alive. When the three people, two are alive, two are late now, and the other one is alive. When he said, he leaned to the other, he said, we have to protect the president from Tinubu. Then I quickly told the other guy beside me, he said, right hand man of the president, he's a professor. I said, but this is wrong. He said, this will be wrong. This man suffered to take us to where we are today. We got same votes in 2003, 2011, 2007, 2011, until he came. And you know, he did so many things. Apart from delivering Buhari to victory, he equally organized the party. Look at the confusion we had in CPC. Multiple candidates for one particular seat. I want to feel. Look at how we lost Kano, Bauchi, Kaduna, and so on and so forth. But when he came, because he's a better party administrator, APC was fine. Not only that, go and see what happened. Remember what happened in Lagos. Voting was delayed for hours. Why? Because all the back door stuff to ensure that he's the one.
But was it also not to ensure that he also was the one?
Pardon?
I mean, was he not doing it because he was looking forward to the baton being handed over?
He wasn't in charge. Tinubu was in charge.
No, but the thing is, yeah, that's what Sunday is just saying right now. Wasn't Tinubu doing all that, all the back channeling, all the promotion, everything like that, because he was looking towards now, when he will come and say, okay, I made you president, make me president as well.
There's nothing wrong with that. People who did not even contribute to the emergence of the president are now very visible in the totem pole of power.
But is it enough?
Yes.
Is it enough to say, I made you president, you must make me president as well?
Let's get this thing right. Let's look at what caused the outburst in Abeokuta yesterday. Apparently, clearly, Asiwaju realizes that all hands are on deck to scuttle his ambition. I don't think that Tinubu is asking for anointment or imposition. No.
But what do you mean by payback? If it's not
I'm coming. But he realized that even the level playing ground he has been craving for is being denied. That's it. I don't think Tinubu is just like Atiku in the PDP. With all respect to other candidates, to other aspirants, there are two major candidates: Atiku in PDP and Tinubu in APC. They have the watches, the experience, and the contacts. You understand? So what they want is simply a level playing ground. So he realized that the outburst yesterday, to my understanding, is because all efforts, some people, there are frantic efforts to deny him that plain and open level ground.
You know, Tinubu's political antecedents are in the public domain. He's quick to give us a narrative that only explains his own role in history. Was it just about the APC coming into the arrangement? Is it fair that we fail to acknowledge the role that other people played in that whole process? And my question is against the backdrop that this is the same man who keeps anointing people in Lagos, who most times are not popular candidates, but he puts the machinery of the party behind them, and they become acceptable eventually, and they emerge. What is wrong if the president chooses to anoint somebody he feels will do the same thing and puts the resources of the party behind that person? Is it too much to ask?
It is one thing for Tinubu to impose a candidate in Lagos and ensure the candidate's victory at the general election. And it's totally another for Buhari and Abuja to impose a candidate, a national candidate, and to ensure his victory.
How so?
These are two different people.
But they also have their court following.
I'm coming. Mr. Sunday, which occultic following are you talking about? This 2022. This is not 2015. There was a report that in Daura, in Katsina State, there was no single candidate that matched his picture with Buhari in a political poster. This is what we call political abomination. 7 years to power. Even PDP candidates in 2015, we imagine their pictures with the president, with Buhari at that time. He was a hot cake then. He is not now. He doesn't have, Tinubu is a credentialed politician. Buhari is not. Look at all the aides of the president, about 10 of them. In a primary election that where more than 10,000 votes were cast, 10 of them did not get up to 200 votes. His nephew was defeated in Daura. His aide was long-time ally, Farouk Adam Ali, was defeated in Jigawa. He was defeated twice when he made effort to be the national, the vice chairman, northwest of the APC, and recently the deputy chairman north. So look at the scenario. These are two different people. Well, again, Tinubu imposed people in Lagos. He imposed people in the southwest. But he made it through democratic means.
But how do we merge in a single sentence imposition and democracy? You know.
It's simple.
Is it a democratic imposition?
Yes. You know, it has some semblance of democracy because at least he subjected the candidate to a democratic process.
Okay.
But here you just want to impose consensus. Let's be mindful of the Electoral Act. What happened in the past cannot happen now.
Interesting conversations there. We will move on to
let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper, which carries the headline: Tinubu opens up, "Without me, Buhari won't be president." I think that is the main story running today. Writers here: President admitted if he picked Pope as running mate, Nigerians won't vote him. Buhari approached me to be his VP. I surrendered my rights to Osinbajo. Without God and me, Dakbo won't be governor. We will vote rightly at convention, says Governor Abiodun, and he tells Tinubu that. And APC names Sanwo-Olu, Ganduje, Ngige, others are convention committee chairs. And then there's another headline, still talking politics. Ekweremadu quits Enugu Goba race, retains faith in PDP, congratulates Mba as party's flag bearer. And moving slightly away from politics now. Planned concession of Calabar Kano trade zones, best way to industrialization, says Adesuba. That is also another headline on the front page of the Blueprint. When you go down the page there is a headline: Gumi offers recipe for Boko Haram, demands Ministry of Nomadic Affairs. That is quite an interesting one as well. At the bottom of the page there we have some headlines. On page 9 you can see look beyond challenges to opportunities in Africa, Buhari tells investors. And on page 22 you'll find the story: Nigerian Airlines to operate Sierra Leone national carrier. Okay. And then another one here, then page 5, that says troops eliminate 14 terrorists, nab 15 in 2 weeks. On page 13 is a story: Sokoto, Russia plans deportation of brilliant Nigerian medical student. Details of that story can be found on page 13 of Blueprint. And on page 14, FG to address renegotiated 2009 ASU-FGN agreement, says the union. And then on page 8, Nirsal disperses 500 million naira loan to Nasarawa farmers. Now, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning.
Given that the major issues there are the ones that have been tackled by our guest already. We'll move straight to the next newspaper, and we will be looking at the leadership newspaper for Friday. The major headline on the leadership newspaper this morning is Flag Bearer, tension in APC as governors plot to oppose PMB's choice. Some dimension to this drama. Southern governors insist on power shift. It is my turn. I am tired of sponsoring political sons, says Tinubu. I thought the last time he said to us that he hasn't a son who is old enough to be president, and now he calls them sons. I remember there were some version of the vice president's comments to the screening committee where they said to him, are you aware you are going against your political godfather? And he said, only God is my godfather. So interesting quotes there from politicians at this time. You will find the story of the president flanked by the ministers of trade and communications, the ongoing visit and his engagement in Spain. We have other headlines down that way. Citing clashes, attack, FCT malls, ban on Okada. We are already seeing the dimension of this whole Okada activities in Lagos, and we have already witnessed 2 successive bloody activities involving citizens and these Okada riders in the metropolis of Abuja. Let's see how that is going to progress. Mother conspires with children to kill stingy husband in Adamawa. Wow. Wow. PDP governors intensify lobby for Atiku's running mate. These are some of the stories on leadership headlines with a bit of tweak to some of the issues we have been discussing. Of course, coming out from the Progressive Governors meeting yesterday were comments around how the governors would prefer one of their own. Is it that all of us are misinterpreting the president's comment? Does it suggest that in helping him to get a candidate, they can go and decide for him? Or he's basically saying, keep your guns and allow me choose my successor and just simply line up your machineries behind them? Or they are basically going ahead to do what they want in complete defiance to the president's play? What exactly is it?
I think that's the difference between Tinubu and Buhari. Even the governors of his party, he didn't carry them alone. He just dish out order. In democracy, particularly multi-party democracy, you don't dish out orders. It's a military junta. And don't forget, you need these governors to deliver. So I think that has been the mindset of the one. And since the return of democracy in 1999, the governors, 2 things, they are very powerful, and they are key stakeholders in the democratic process. You remember during the transition, Obasanjo transition, one of them was picked. Yes. They look at it now, okay, if you allow the president, what is our own?
But most of them are gone in for the Senate seat, and they want their anointed children to be governors also. Is it not sufficient to say they also have a high stake?
With the president or no president, they will still, it's their retirement home. The Senate is their retirement home. Maybe by by June next year, when they inaugurate the Senate, you'll see more than maybe 2/3 of them will be former governors. The way things are going now, you know we are producing former governors, and you don't expect your former governor to go back to his village. He has to come and retire in Senate. So that's one. But second, more importantly, apparently there is no direct line of communication between the president and the governors. You understand? Look at what he did. If not, before he did that, you did a report, I think 2 weeks ago, how Obasanjo picked Eradua. There was a committee. There was consultations. Obasanjo was equally a general, even more wartime general, but he didn't impose just like that. You have to galvanize support. And particularly, 2023 is peculiar in the sense that this zoning issue is there. This retaining power in the north after 8 years of a northern presidency. You know, some people think that no. Those journalists, you are not the only people in the country. You understand? So that's the dilemma. So there must be concerted effort to assuage these people, particularly the Akeredolus and what have you. But when you just come, Mr. Brian, you say, no, that your words is final. You just tell them and you jet out to Madrid. Then you are in for a big surprise.
Interesting.
Well, it is quite interesting. So we'll take a look at the next paper, which is the Nigerian Tribune. And it talks about something that we just alluded to right here, because that's the major headline. And it said, rotate power to South to retain presidency, Akeredolu tells APC. That is the major headline on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. And another one here that's still on the Tinubu issue. It is my turn. It's Yoruba's turn, says Tinubu. And a writer here that explains efforts he made for Buhari to be president, how he nominated Osibanjo as VP. Primaries, tension in APC over governor's plot to resist Buhari. Osibanjo, Adamu APC governors meet, and Adamu announces 18 sub-committees. This is another headline on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Well, moving slightly away from politics, families of Kaduna train victims mark 65 days in captivity. And a rider here that says, decry fate of 2-year-old baby and pregnant woman and others. Details of that story can be found on page 27. Buhari must appease Fulani before leaving office, says Gumi, and can be found on page 28. And EFCC releases Accountant General of the Federation on bail. That is on page 19 of the Nigerian Tribune. And talking about something that we also alluded to earlier, Okada ban, Commercial Motorcycle Riders Union sues Lagos government. Details of that story and more can be found on page 19 of the Nigerian Tribune. These are the major headlines on the front page of that newspaper.
Before quickly running away from here, it's been 65 days since the incident involving the Nigerian Railway on the way to Kaduna. Have we forgotten about them as activities intensify ahead of 2023? What kind of feelers do you get from what appears to be like a long silence, other than the attempts by governments to announce a restart of the train service?
Yeah, maybe don't lump the two issues, the train service and that. 65 days after the bloody attack, and about 40 days after the presidential directive to the security agencies to rescue these people. This is very important. So the security agencies have ignored a presidential directive. Yes. And no one was suspended. No one was sacked. Yes. Why is this thing taking this long? So it's a problem.
Now, some say it's maybe because the president is actually preoccupied now with the democratic imposition that that he's trying to make.
Yeah, maybe. And he has forgotten that he has issued a directive 40 days ago. That these Nigerians, including a 2-year-old and pregnant woman, should be rescued.
I think even the ones that were directed seem to have forgotten that directive.
So I don't want to talk about the president's directive. Maybe he likes it that way, when he issues an order. Or maybe the directives were not from him. Yeah, because you see the directives on press releases and what if it. Maybe the media team that.
Okay. Interesting. We are still also yet to hear from the Minister of State for Transport, who seemed to have taken over from the substantive minister, who is neck deep into succeeding his principal.
To continue the good work.
Well, before we wrap up this session, we will quickly slot in another newspaper, and this time it will be the Nation's newspaper. The major headline, of course, consistent with what we have seen throughout other papers, Akeredolu, why APC must rotate power to retain power. Tinubu visits Oyo, Ogun, gets delegates backing. It is time to reward me, says ex-president. You have the conspicuous picture, an advert, even though, of the Senate president, who I'm sure also thinks himself the anointed one. We are waiting for the prophet to reveal who this anointed person is. We have picture of Tinubu during his consultation stopover in Ogun, and right there also with him is the governor of Ogun, that of Lagos and Kano. Incidentally, your governor has been on his campaign trail. He has also jettisoned state matters to the presidential. I hope he also doesn't come to tell us in 2027 that they have a gentleman agreement that power will return to, and then it will become a turn-by-turn Nigeria Limited, as we have tried to see with Tinubu. And then very quickly, new investors take over Union Bank. Chairman, CEO, directors quit. And right above the nameplate, we have invest at home. Buhari urges Nigerians abroad. Interesting. APC convention. Oyegu panel here to submit screening report. 19 committees swing into action. We have spent 43 billion on pensioners, says Oyetola. You find that on page 24, and that's coming from the governor in Osun. Makinde may unveil running mates today. Oh, interesting. And that's another thing we read from one of the papers that they are looking to do for Atiku as a way of pacifying the regions that feel that they are entitled to this. I want a 30 seconds reaction to that before we wrap this up.
Yes, because that democracy, not what Mr. Brian called democratic imposition. Because yes, the North has the highest voting power, but if, for instance, the other parts of the country gang up together, they will defeat the North. So you need other parts of the country. And look at Buhari has been popular in the North, Northwest, North Central. The Northwest has the largest voting, Northeast and some part of the North Central. But he contested in 2003 and failed. He contested in 2007 and failed. He contested in 2011 and failed. Until, he extended an olive branch to the Southwest in particular. And that's why he was delivered. He moved to victory. So that's how it should be. It should be about persuasion. You understand? We should not just kick out what Governor Akeredolu is saying. No. We shouldn't forget about what the Southeasterners are saying. Let's look at it. It's one country.
Rotation has been a very major issue during this election, and I'm sure it will play a major role as well. I hope we had more time to actually delve into this issue. Once again, Nuruddin Abdullah, it's very nice having you on the program.
Thank you very much.
And we appreciate your analysis as always.
Thank you.
Well, still Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the show continues. Do stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that